No Film School's NAB 2022 coverage is brought to you by Blackmagic Design and Creative Solutions, which consists of Small HD, Teradek, and Wooden Camera, and Atomos.
We're here at the Angénieux BandPro booth. We're talking to Randy. I think of Angénieux as zoom lenses, like the Optimo, like these giant zoom lenses that you take out into the desert, and it's just like if you don't have a separate mount for it, the whole thing tips over like this. But Optimo is now making, Angénieux is now making prime lenses. So there's a lot happening here. We're talking to just the right guy.
What's up, everybody? I'm Randy. I'm with BandPro Film and Digital. We've also become Angénieux for the Americas. So that's North and South America. We do all the distribution, we do all the sales, we do all the service now. So we are Angénieux more or less officially for all those areas. Like you were saying, there are now Optimo Primes, and this is kind of a brainchild project between BandPro and Angénieux. This is kind of what our initial partnership was all about. Was we're trying to create a prime lens that starts out with a really beautiful image, but then if you have a special DP or a special project that comes along, you want to be able to open this lens up and customize the optics on the inside. This has been going on at a lot of really big time rental houses and stuff, but it's really hard to compete if you don't have this massive manufacturing thing where you're like, I'm going to make this DP a new lens. So what this lens offers is kind of the ability for a pretty basic lens tech to open it up, kind of take off a few rings and take some parts of the lens out, and then you can change out individual optics like this on the inside. And, we partner with Tiffin Schneider to create a couple different combinations of effects, and I've got this demo reel here that's playing. And basically, you can choose a lot of different combinations of flare and glare and color and kind of, a lot of different things. You can change the look of the lens to make it, when it's on the inside, filter is being lit up and bouncing light all around the lens, and it ends up looking a lot more like a vintage lens than a filter on a lens. So it's really cool in that way that you can have the look of an older lens, but the controls and the performance of a 21st century super modern prime lens. So that's really cool.
I went to a talk with a big famous DP, and he was talking about customizing lenses, pulling out elements, kind of doing what you're stuff that you're talking about, where actually the focal plane of the lens changes or stuff like that. What kinds of effects can you achieve by changing the optics inside of this lens?
So we've done this pretty extensive demo film that we're playing here. I can show you a little bit, or I can give it to you. I can cut it in there or something. But it's a lot of really subtle and not so subtle flare and glare characteristics. That's kind of our chapter one of the effects. Other things we have in here. You can change out the iris. We've got one lens here that has an oval iris. This lens has a triangular iris. And this mimics a lot of the look of an old school B-speed Zeiss lens from the 70s, like Taxi Driver time period, that kind of thing. So we took this and we added a glimmer glass and kind of created a vintage old school, Zeiss super speed kind of lens, and we're really happy with that.
But with modern optics, you get this kind of almost strange...
It's full frame, super sharp, super incredible geometry, even illumination, all that stuff, but some funkiness to the flares, some interesting shapes in the bokeh, that kind of thing. So we're really trying to go beyond just changing the flare and glare and going into now the shape. And the next thing that we're going to be doing is working with certain optics manufacturers to create kind of convex lenses for the back.
Interesting.
Throw out what you were talking about, changing the airspace and making it so just the center of the frame is in focus and it falls off to the edges. I don't know if you saw this new Batman and stuff. There's some shots where just the center of the frame is in focus and it kind of melts off to the edges. And that's really excellent,
What focal lengths are these available in?
There's a set of 12 lenses, so they go between 18 and 200, and that's pretty serious in terms of full frame, and 18 is pretty wide. It's similar to what you'd have on a 12 and Super 35. So It's really nice. They're really super nice geometry on them. So the 18 is almost totally rectilinear.
Oh,
it's really
perfect.
nice in that way. Another thing I got here, we're talking about zooms. Angénieux knows how to do zooms. So this is the Optimo Ultra Compact. They used to have a compact lens. And this was a 15 to 40 and a 28 to 76. And this is just like the daily driver on a television series or a feature film. Every shot, let's go see if we can do it with the zoom.
Yeah. I mean, the nice thing with a Cine Zoom is you throw one of those things on and you don't leave it the rest of the day. I mean, unlike primes, it's like lens change, 5 minutes, 10 minutes at a time.
So this is a lot like the 28 to 76, but in full frame. This is a 37 to 102, and it's a T2.9. And the thing about this lens that's kind of missing from a lot of the conversation of full frame zoom lenses is this lens is not only high resolution, but it's also low contrast. So a lot of this stuff, super modern lenses, they're being like kind of pushing the envelope, chasing some specs, making things maybe too sharp.
Right.
Like we have super high resolution sensors. I don't necessarily know, like we want sharpness, but we don't want too much contrast sometimes. So the Angénieux decades and decades of research of this is like these people love filmmaking. They're not here to try to like film a chart. They're here to film people and make them look good.
Yeah.
So I mean that's kind of like the secret recipe of Angénieux is that they're designed to make people look good.
I worked with a DP one time and that was his exact comment. We were shooting at the time on a Canon C500 and he was like, well, our chip is so sharp that we need to use vintage lenses just to reduce the contrast, reduce the sharpness a little bit, just to have a more naturalistic thing. What you're saying is you're building that into these lenses.
So one of the things that's kind of surprising is that this lens just came out, but it has kind of like vintage vibes to it. It's got like some really nice flare, some really nice glare. It's got some cool shapes in, when you flare it and that kind of thing. Rainbow flares, milky white, veiling glare, that kind of stuff. Stuff you'd see that's kind of like engineered out of a lot of, especially zoom lenses. I know there's a lot of funky primes and stuff out there, but like a lot of zoom lenses are pretty like square, like they make a picture, it's sharp, it's high resolution, but it's kind of like sometimes it's lifeless. And these have a lot of life in them. So I'm really like pleased to be working with the Angénieux team because they get it,
What are some cool things that you've seen shot or what are you looking forward to seeing somebody shoot with these?
I mean, we just delivered a first couple of these, but I mean, like it's not like a terribly difficult thing to like put onto a set. People know what this is. It's like, oh, it's the full frame version of the compact zoom. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I want that. So it's going to basically be everywhere. These primes, we had some pretty good success recently introducing them again with the customization. So there's a couple of, I can't really talk about the names of them, but there's some really big streaming projects, a big series from Amazon and another feature film that's being done with a very famous DP. And they're both using Optimo primes with glimmer glass on the inside. So they had a really good success with that. Kind of adds a little bit of extra flair, but also a lot of color flair to it. So
I mean, I think like as independent filmmakers, the thing that we're often looking at is how do you take a story on the page and then bring it to life? And not only is it, everybody wants to talk about the camera, but I feel like you have more effective change in terms of the visual through the lens choice. And what you're saying is you're even expanding the quality of what you can achieve with a single lens based on this platform.
Yeah, I mean, the lens now with this prime, it's kind of like a framework. And we have recently BAMPro has been given a lot of control on this project called the IOP project. That's these internal optical palettes. And so we have a new program with Tiffin and where we can kind of like fast track things. So if you want something that's not on our development list, not on our price sheet, we can work with our manufacturers to create it and put it out on your job quickly.
See that? Customizing lenses.
To order.
To order.
Yes.
Who else is doing that for you? Who else is doing that for you? Randy.
Yeah.
This is the guy.
Yeah. So come check us out at BAMPro. If you missed NAB, if you missed our booth party, which is happening right now, you can come check us out at BAMPro.com or just come to our shop in Burbank.
Booyah. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.